Welcome into this week's episode of the IDP Guys Waiver Wire Show. As always, I am your host, Michael Sicoli, joined back by the legendary co-host, Axton Harding. We're going to obviously get to our waiver wire pickups real shortly, going defense and offense, linemen, linebackers, safeties. A lot of people to talk about this week. A lot of sad injuries and therefore a lot of pickups to make. But how are you doing, Axton? How's it going?
Not too bad. Hanging in there, taking it day by day, week by week. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I had a lineup that was just decimated by injuries, and then Nick Bolton came. I lost by 1.1. I lost by 1.1 as Nick Bolton tried to claw me back into the game on Monday night. But it is what it is. You can't win them all. So hopefully, rebound and get it back this week. Because we got a lot of names on that because there's a lot of injuries, such as we'll run through that at the top: Nick Bosa, Nyheim Hines, Chris Olave, Damian Harris. Michael Walker, although he's expected to be good to go. Russell Wilson expected to keep playing. Rashad Penny out for the year. Emmanuel Mosley out for the year. Kwity Paye, high ankle sprain, got carted off. Lots. And Marcus Williams also on the IR. There's too many injuries for this week, and it felt a little bit sad to watch. But, we do have a lot of names to get to. And that's the bright side, is that we have replacements for you. We have names that are going to get it done for you on your fantasy rosters. So, you want to start us off with defensive linemen? Do you want me to start off? What are we doing?
Go ahead and highlight kind of you and Santa's picks from last week, and we'll dive into it.
Every single week, and I did it again last week. I forget to do that, so thank you. You are the best. All right, last week we talked about Grady Jarrett, 3 tackles, 2 solo. Obviously, we know the blown call that would have been a strip sack, which obviously would have made it a much better day, but referees don't like fantasy football, and they certainly don't seem to like football, so it is what it is. Kenny Clark, 3 tackles, kind of that high floor at least, but not what we were hoping for sure. Sebastian Joseph Day had himself a good, solid performance with 6 tackles and QB hit. Rasheem Green, who we talked about as a stash, 3 tackles only. He's going to go into his bye week. Probably a tough player to hold in some formats through the bye, but obviously depends on your format. But yeah, this week's pickups. Lead us off, Axton. Lead us off.
I'll start us off with Justin Jones, defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
He's played pretty well this year, and he's going up against surging Philadelphia offense. But the thing with this Philadelphia offense is that their line is really allowing a lot of pressure to Jalen Hurts, and with the way that Jalen Hurts plays, he tends to like to leak out the edge of the pocket, and so a lot of defensive ends have been able to get some knockdowns or some hits or sacks or anything and take advantage of that. So he's got a pretty good opportunity coming up in week 6. He's kind of presenting as more of like a sack or bust kind of candidate, but I think with a mobile quarterback, that kind of allows for a little bit more opportunity, at least for this week. They've only allowed 11 sacks, that Philadelphia offensive line, but again, considering the mobile quarterback in this weekend with the way they've just kind of struggled, I think it just lends well to to opportunity, especially for big play dependent defensive linemen.
Yeah, I was doing my Thursday preview for the newsletter, of which the IDP Guys newsletter, something I run, is linked to sign that up in my Twitter bio, and I was doing a preview for the Bears, and I like everyone in this matchup. I really do. And I think Justin Jones has really shown the ability to at least get the job done. And he's done that so far. What did you just say?
Oh, I totally missed. I was reading our notes from Doris Armstrong's matchup. So,
I was thinking in my head, I was like, Philadelphia. I was like, wait, that doesn't sound right. But we'll rerun it then. Justin Jones against Washington this week, which is a much better matchup than the Eagles for Justin Jones. He's tallied 6 tackles or a sack in every game since week 1. With all defensive tackles, there's a bit of volatility, like Justin Jones, which is why he's more of a streamer. But against Washington, short week, I'm lining up every single IDP guy that I can with Washington and on both sides of that ball, because I think both are going to ground and pound the game. I think Washington's going to recommit to the run game through Brian Robinson on Thursday night. And I think that'll be great for Justin Jones. I think it's going to be a fairly high tackle day for a defensive tackle. And Carson Wentz, we know what Carson Wentz can do, and he can fumble, he can take sacks. That combined with a good ground game, I like Justin Jones as a nice 1 week stream this week.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to find that Washington offense trying to run the ball between the tackles a little bit more than what they have with Brian Robinson out. And then, like you said, with Carson Wentz just being sacked 2, 3, 4 times, up to 9 times in a single week, just really lends well to opportunity. Uh, but on to kind of what I was already touching on, Doris Armstrong, the defensive lineman for Dallas Cowboys, plays against Philadelphia Eagles. That's kind of what I was actually alluding to. Sorry for any confusion for any viewers. But yeah, he plays Jalen Hurts, who likes to leak around the edge of of his offensive line if he feels that pressure, and he might run into a Dorrance Armstrong in Week 6, and give him plenty of opportunity to come up with some big plays, some tackle for losses, some maybe even a sack or QB hit or anything like that. Just adds a lot of opportunity to him for this week.
Yeah, he's just played so well this year. Like the Cowboys front, Michael Parsons gets all the love. DeMarcus Lawrence has played pretty well in spots this year, but Dorrance Armstrong has been a very unsung part of that defense. And maybe it's going to be more of a football thing. He's got it done for IDP some weeks and some weeks others. So it's a very much a high risk, high reward play, and I'm willing to ride it one more week because the amount of TFLs that Philadelphia tends to give up. Last thing I want to throw out there, he's fairly owned, but Montez Sweat, I'll just say it right there. Montez Sweat, everyone who was drafted in most IDP formats as the edge for Washington, and the same reason we're chasing, the Bears, are the same reason I'm chasing Washington, because bad offensive line, QB that takes sacks, turnover potential. Montez Sweat had a really slow start to the year. He was pretty much unplayable for the first 4 weeks. He got back on track last week, and I think that it's going to continue into Chicago this week. So I'm willing to ride it one more week with the snaps that he has got and give him one more chance. I'm giving everyone a chance against the Bears. I'm giving everyone a chance against Washington. So that extends to Montez Sweat, that I still don't have doubts in the talent. And that helps me kind of lean it all in there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've been one, at least personally this year, if I find any defenses on the waivers that are playing the Chicago Bears offense, I've just picked up every single one. And so far, every week to date, it's paid off. So it definitely, with the Bears offense really leaning heavily on that run game, it's just kind of opening up more opportunities for that defensive line or opposing defensive lines to rack up tackles and even get back to the quarterback if or when Justin Fields decides I guess this coaching staff that decides if he wants to step back and pass. And then again, with the mobile quarterback, just kind of hopping around the pocket and even leaking out a little bit just adds a lot of opportunity, especially for a guy like Montez Sweat, who can really just have a hell of a day.
Yep. And I got a quick hit right here for a Quiddy Pay replacement, Deo Oden, Odeyingbo. I hope I'm saying that correctly. 4 tackles, half a sack, 2 QB hits on 40 snaps. It's going to surge now that Quiddy Pay is expected to miss time. I think he's a worthy pickup and maybe a play in spots. I might want to give it one more week to see what I actually have there. But it's a name to keep in mind. That's Deo Odeyingbo. I hope I'm saying that right. But and I apologize if I'm not. But good afternoon to you, Marco, in the comments. It's a great reminder that with the offensive stuff, we're going to get to it at the offensive section. But if anyone has any questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. We're going to get to them at the end of defense, at the end of offense, and waivers, fantasy football. That's what we're here for. We're here for you guys for an hour. We're going to get right to it. But linebacker, let's move on to linebacker. We have a lot of good names there. Last week, we suggested Jalen Smith, who came out, 6 tackles, a solid, an okay day. Plays 60% of the snaps, so I think that could still go up, but I think that's probably the role he's going to play. Jelani Tavai racked up 5 tackles, kind of meh. We talked about Blake Martinez and Joe Scobert as potential stashes. Both played minimal roles. Blake Martinez was around 10% of snaps, so maybe that rises, maybe it doesn't. Either way, it wasn't going to happen this week. But I'm very happy with these names that we have coming up this week. I think we have a lot of good names to play. Let's start with Denver, because Josie Jewell, who was on that team where I lost by 1.1, by the way, left the game at halftime with a knee injury. And that's terrible. It sucks, because now after fighting his way back from injury, he's now going to be week to week with a knee sprain. And now we're back to the Alex Singleton train, aren't we?
Yeah, that dreadful train where you had asked me on here who would I prefer, Jonas Griffith or Alex Singleton, and as icky as it feels to say, unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to go with Singleton taking advantage of Josie Jewell's absence here. Uh, if Singleton has already been picked up, then Griffith might be a decent stash. But he's more of a wait and see kind of thing for me. I think Singleton's really just he's kind of had a decent year already with a pretty nice tackle floor. So I expect that to pretty well carry forward and maybe even increase in the coming weeks with Jewell out.
I was very much sleeping on the banners today. I apologize if everyone just saw that pop up all willy nilly like that. But yeah, and Baron Browning had a very good game on Thursday night. And again, the Colts line is possibly the worst in football with the worst tackles in football. So I'm not going to totally chase the Baron Browning production yet, but he looked good. He played incredibly well. Nick Bonino, who we also tossed out as a potential name there, although linebacker. It's just hard for linebackers who are edge rushers they have to be dominant to outlast the guy that has 8 to 10 tackles a week. So it's just floor versus ceiling type of thing. So you could take the risk on Baron Browning as well, but that's obviously comes with a lower floor. Number 2, the big news of Monday. I think it was Monday when it happened, or Sunday, maybe, I don't know. Dion Jones, Atlanta linebacker, is now heading to Cleveland, exchanged for 2 2024 late round picks. How interested are you in this? Because I am honestly. Because
I am too. With Walker going down and Phillips really coming in, he hasn't done bad in his role, but I just think that Dion Jones really really allows for a lot more potential at the linebacker position. And I'd be excited. I'm excited to see kind of what role or how heavily they involve him in this defense, because I feel like it's one that he could really come in and honestly make an immediate impact. I don't think that their Browns defense has been exceptional by any means to this point this season.
Oh, and I think that hits the nail on the head right there, is that the Brown defense has been bad, and that they yet as a team have been better than expected, and they are well in contention mode right now. The AFC North is still wide open. The offense has played better than they thought. Dion Jones is a very much win now move. Now, something it's important to bring up is that he's coming off the IR. Like, this isn't Dion Jones is going to play this week because he still isn't off the IR. He might not be ready. So
Right.
I think for the time being, everyone that might be panic dropping Jacob Phillips might be making a mistake, because Jacob Phillips played 100% of snaps last week, racked up the tackles, played 30% more snaps than JOK, by the way, which is kind of interesting. And that's like, I do think at the end of the day, Jacob Phillips is going to lose that job to Dion Jones. But until Dion Jones is healthy on the field, knows the scheme, which might take a week or two, you ride out Jacob Phillips. So if he's still out there on your wire, this is just as much of an as a promo for Jacob Phillips as it is for Dion Jones. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about JOK, just because the snaps are really fluctuating. Wasn't he
injured last week? Didn't he get injured a little bit? I think he did get injured because they lost Walker, and I think JOK did get injured. I'm not sure exactly how much time he might have missed, but he did come off the field. So that might be something that might have been lingering into this week.
Yeah.
And it would explain the low snap count and why Phillips was on there 100% of the time. But again, it is interesting to see, and I'd like to. I'm excited to see kind of what they plan to do with Dion Jones, because as of his history, and at least last year, he gave you a nice double-digit tackle floor. So if he can come in and get a lot of opportunity and a high snap count, I think he could come in and lead this team in tackles, honestly, for the year.
Yep, couldn't agree more. Quick note on Willie Gay. Willie Gay should be, I believe he's got 1 game left on suspension, but an interesting stash as well. If you were waiting for him, Chiefs linebacker had his mid-year suspension because of a off-field incident. So he is a very productive player for IDP, and he might be on your wire because people do want to hold him to the suspension. But for other names, because we actually have a lot that we want to quickly get through. And on the Atlanta side, that's good for Troy Anderson dynasty. Michael Walker is still going to be the guy. Troy Anderson might eventually eat into Rashad Evans, but I'm not expecting that anytime soon. And more on the Dion Jones in this week's newsletter. Again, link for that in the Twitter for my Twitter because I'm going to look into that a little bit more this week. But Jermaine Pratt, Bengals linebacker, saw a 10% jump in snap share this week. He had a very strong performance, and he's been quietly good all year. He grabbed a sack, which is something that could continue to increase. And I think the Bengals are really looking for an answer at linebacker. I don't think Logan Wilson has come back exactly how they wanted him to, and they still need someone aside from him. And they kind of haven't had that since. I'm trying to think of another name, but it's been a few years since the Bengals have had a pair of linebackers that they feel confident in. And I think Jermaine Pratt's kind of filled that in spots, and I think he's an interesting play for this week and potentially beyond.
Yeah, he's definitely carving out a role for himself. It seems like every single week his snaps are kind of increasing little by little. And this last week, I think as you alluded to, he saw a 10% jump. And with that sack, it could lead to even more in the future. Like you said, if they're looking for that center stone of that defense to come in and make plays, and I think he might be developing himself into a nice little role there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One last number. He's got four games this season. He's got 8 tackles in 3 of the 4. He's jumped to 80% snaps this week after being 71, 70, 66. I think he's a very good pickup for this week because those are really good numbers, and the Bengals. The best part about it is that it makes sense, right? All right, we'll get to the next name because we do have a lot of linebackers.
That's right. The fourth linebacker we got here is Terrell Dodson. He's an excellent streamer if for those Tremaine Edmonds owners who are kind of trying to figure out what to do while he's out. If it lingers into next week and beyond, which with hamstrings they do tend to linger, they're a lot easier to irritate in practice. Just a simple wrong tweak can really take you out for another 2 or 3 weeks. So just kind of monitor Tremaine Edmonds, and Terrell Dodson would be someone that you could stash for the time being. And if Edmonds is out again, I'd throw him in there. Last week he had 11 tackles, getting the double-digit numbers, tackle for a loss and a sack, which is all kind of in the same. And he's available in just about every league out there, even in some dynasties. So definitely keep an eye on the Tremaine Edmonds situation, and don't be afraid to pick up Terrell Dodson in replacement for him this week.
Yeah, he popped off last week, and I mean it helps that the Steelers are abysmal, but it's something that will continue to go. He got the snaps, he got the role, and he played well in it. And he came out and said, I could be a starter in this league. He's all fired up. And I don't know. I will plug and play Terrell Dodson if Jermaine Edmonds is out. And I will say some regression is coming. Matt Milano only had, I think it was 2 tackles in that game, which is not the norm for Matt Milano, which means some of those tackles will end up splitting. But still, if he drops from 11 to 8, you're probably still happy as long as he gets a TFL in there or something like that. So I think Terrell Dodson is a plug and play as long as Edmonds is out. And I'll throw one other name. We've talked about him extensively on the show already, but Alex Anzalone, he did dip below 100% snaps for the first time, I think, this season. He dropped, I think it was around 10%. And then Malcolm Rodriguez climbed his way to 80%. He's been climbing up. He was 65. He was at 74. Now he's at 80. It's getting there. Malcolm Rodriguez, linebacker for the Detroit Lions in a game where the Lions were shut out and embarrassed against the lowly Patriots. Yeah, it's happening for Malcolm Rodriguez. He's pretty owned at this point, but I want to throw him out there because it's just nice to see him getting his jump, and maybe he's not. Always check your wire because people get, especially in IDP, there's a lot of fluctuation and redraft as well. So take a look. Take a look at your wire. See what people are dropping. All right. Do you want to head to defensive back?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and just kind of brief everybody on you and Stanos' calls for last week. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dane Belton we brought up just in case Julian Love missed. Julian Love didn't, so obviously he didn't play Dane Belton. But DeSean Elliott popped off. Huge day. Don't let him be on your wire because he is a good player and he has the Tracy Walker role right now. And the Tracy Walker role was incredibly valuable. And DeSean Elliott delivered in a huge way for your fantasy lineups to the tune of double-digit tackles and TFL sides. He did everything for the Lions. And as long as the Lions are going to be allowing long defensive drives, DeSean Elliott has every single opportunity to thrive. So that's on the other. The next name we threw out there was Kirby Joseph as a potential play opposite of DeSean Elliott, but he's dropping a little bit too deep into coverage, which that was somewhat expected just because he was a better coverage guy than what's it called? Whoever was
Tracy
the week
Walker.
before. Well, then Tracy Walker and there was the other safety we brought up last week of whether Kirby Joseph or the other guy, but regardless, he's probably too far from the line of scrimmage to make the plays you need. And then we brought up Jack Jones, who came out again, got another interception. I don't like chasing interceptions, Axton, but that's 2 weeks running now. Either way, if you picked up almost any of those names last week, I hope you did, because DeSean Elliott might still be out there on your wire, so definitely take a look because he is a good player and will be for the rest of the season. But what names do you want to throw out here?
I'll go ahead and just kind of touch on Justin Burris, the safety for the Carolina Panthers. Jeremy Chin went down. Was it week 4? They signed him, promoted him from the practice squad before their Sunday game, and he actually came in and did exceptional. He recorded 65 snaps, got 8 tackles, had a nice high floor for his first game in, and even saw a pass deflection. I think he would be worth a stash, at least to see kind of what he can do moving forward. He had a great first week, but I like to see these guys come in and repeat somewhat of the same production for a couple of weeks before I feel comfortable really throwing him into the lineup. But the high snap count, high tackle floor, pass deflection, it's encouraging. So I think he's worth a pickup and maybe a stash to see just kind of what kind of production he can bring the Carolina Panthers in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I think we were kind of chasing for who's going to fill that role, Jefferson on the AR, and now we have Steve Wilkes taking over in Carolina because Matt Rule is now gone. So all things considered, a lot of things we're looking for there. And again, a quick note here: if anyone's got questions for us, defense, offense, toss it in the chat. We'll be sure to get to it. But I want to bring up the replacement for Emmanuel Mosley. It's because obviously Emmanuel Mosley is now out for the year with an ACL injury. They don't have a replacement. Like, that's kind of the issue. And the name that Kyle Shanahan brought up is someone who's not out there right now. It's 31-year-old Jason Verrett, who has been often injured himself. And they're counting on him to return from injury and be that guy. I don't know when he's going to be back because that's the talk. But, when Verrett's out there, he's played well. He'll probably still get targeted, so that would be a good thing for our tackle hopes. But it's not someone I'm chasing, unfortunately. I'm not really going to chase the replacement there. I will throw out Travarius Ward yet again. We've talked about him on this show before, so he might be rostered. You might be rostering him if you listened. But he continues to pop off with good tackle performances. I don't think that changes anytime soon. But do you want to touch on the Marcus Williams situation? Obviously on the IR. I saw our own Dynasty Santa. I saw a lot of people excited for a Kyle Hamilton breakout, but I'm personally not sure if he takes that role. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just a little bit scary now, him being a rookie, being thrusted into really a prominent role in that secondary now with Marcus Williams going down. But it does, again, it lends well to opportunity. He's going to be the stud back there. So you'd like to think that he's going to be a little bit more involved and kind of be all over the field. But at the same time, it's kind of one of those things that I want to see it first. I'm not going to go chasing it, assuming that he's just going to come out and just see a drastic increase in production. Yeah,
I'm not even sure if he gets the role. Like, I think a lot of people are expecting it. Maybe I'm just on the outside looking in. Maybe I'm overlooking something. But Kyle Hamilton has been brutally bad in coverage. Like, God knows I loved him as a prospect. God knows everyone loved him as a prospect. But he has been such a liability, and that's why his snaps dropped. They lined him up there the first couple weeks, like 50% each 2 weeks, and then he dropped down to 20s and 20s and 20s. I think Geno Stone takes the role. I think Geno Stone takes the deep coverage role, and I'm not going to be, if you're truly desperate for the Marcus Williams replacement, I think it's Geno Stone's and not Kyle Hamilton. The sky is the limit for Hamilton, so I get that. and I get stashing him because he's a much higher upside. I just don't know if Kyle Hamilton is going to be the Marcus Williams replacement. I just don't quite see it. That's just
maybe not. Maybe not. Well, maybe not for now. Anyways, rookies tend to have some sort of adjustment period, and it seems like he might be having a little bit more struggles than say like your Sauce Gardners or guys like that kind of had similar draft capital.
Yep, that's it. It'll come. The time will come for Kyle Hamilton, and it'll be so fun when it does. It is indeed inevitable. So I think we're going to segue straight into offense this week. Let's just plow right through to it. Again, if anyone has any questions, be sure, drop them in the chat. We'll be sure to bring them up. We do still see Marco's wonderful question. We're going to get to it with the offensive ones as we're going to segue into it. Quarterbacks, Axton, was an interesting one because I thought that my Carson Wentz pick was going to be hurting me again. However, he did for the NFL, but he was not good for the NFL, but he still got those garbage time touches, and he got it done for fantasy with over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was very much a volume and game script way to get it done against the Titans defense, which wasn't pretty, but he got it done for fantasy. So him, Jacoby Myers only put up 16, so a low-level streamer, not exactly what I was hoping for, but didn't cripple your lineup either. And we brought up Kenny Pickett as a stash, especially in Superflex. Kenny Pickett obviously definitely didn't get it done this past week, but the game script's going to be there because the Steelers are a bad team, and you hope that he improves throughout the year. All right, what streamers do we want to get to for our Week 6 quarterbacks action? Which one do you want to kick us off with?
I like the one you had listed there first, and Geno Smith. He's playing the Cardinals this week, which is kind of middle of the pack against quarterbacks. And in the last 3 weeks, he's rolling at least two touchdowns every week. And I think he's a season-long ad. I think he's somebody that's on your waiver wire that's honestly leading the league in many categories. He's top 5 or 6 in overall fantasy points for quarterbacks. He's tied for 7th with Joe Burrow in total passing touchdowns with 9. He's got a top 5 passer rating. I found that through Sleeper and ESPN. And then he's also got a league-leading 75% completion percentage. And honestly, who could have ever seen that coming from Geno Smith in the Seattle offense? I think everybody had that entire offense completely counted out about all over the board. So if he's on your waiver wire, even if you have a stud quarterback, definitely go ahead and throw him on your bench. There's chances are he's going to do just as well or possibly even better than any QB2 you probably might already have.
And the best part is that Seattle's defense is a lot of issues, and it's going to still have a lot of issues. So Geno's always got a reason to throw the ball, and he's done well with it. Yeah.
Especially with Kenneth Walker able to catch passes out of the backfield. Rashad Penny's injured, which is terrible. We obviously kind of hope for a speedy recovery from him, but Kenneth Walker is going to lend well to a little bit more flexibility from the quarterback. So,
and we are definitely going to be talking about Kenneth Walker and on with the running back section. But yeah, I'll throw one other quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, not a fun name, not an exciting name. No one wants to play Jimmy Garoppolo, but he plays Atlanta, and everyone likes to play Atlanta because Atlanta allows a lot of points to the quarterback. Let's take a look at that. Jameis Winston, a 22-point performance in week 1. Matt Stafford, 24 week 2. Geno, we just talked about him, 21. Brady, this past week, put up 22. So, honestly, all those names, with the exception of, I guess, Brady when he has his weapon core, have and Geno, who's played above expectations, all those names have struggled this year, but not against Atlanta. And that's why I like Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think he's just going to get it done. I think it'll be a safe 18-21, and that's a very fine stream when you're just looking for someone off the wire. So I think you do worse than Jimmy Garoppolo against Atlanta this week, in Atlanta, in a pinch as well. So let's get into running back, because I think that is all of a sudden, this is what zero RB people have been touting forever, right? This is why. Because all of a sudden we have a number of names here that I think we can plug and play almost. And that's, yeah, let's just jump right into it. Do you want to take away the biggest name of the week, the guy that all we have to talk about is how much fab we want to put on him, really? But take it away.
All the fab. No, but you are going to put a significant amount of your fab down for Kenneth Walker with Rashad Penny going out this week. He is going to be heavily involved, and he's going to. I'm just excited to see this kind of whatever, all the drafters, dynasty drafters of Kenneth Walker and fans have been waiting for and looking forward to this year's for him to get his chance. And I think just as good as any, I think he's probably going to even give you, with the same kind of touches as Penny, I think he might give you a safer floor, especially after his performance last week, first game back. Crazy.
Yep. And he's not owned in 54% Yahoo League. So I think a lot of people, especially in your dynasty circles and anybody in the Twitter space, is looking at it and like, come on, he's owned, he's been rostered, he's been saved. That's not the case in a lot of these leagues, and it might not be the case in your league. So like we talked about before, just check, give a look, because he has to be owned. And I've checked some of my rosters, and I'm willing to put 70% of my budget on Kenneth Walker, like easily. I'd be willing to go the whole shebang if I was desperately in need. I had Javonte Williams and I had Rashad Penny, and all of a sudden I'm in desperate need, and Kenneth Walker's out there. It's a league winner. Yeah. It's a league winner. This is textbook definition league winner with Kenneth Walker, and I'm willing to put every single dime I have. I'd probably be lingering around the 70% of my budget range, and if I spent a lot, then I'll spend the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And at this point in the season, 5 weeks in, it just lends well to maybe teams that haven't had an opportunity to go in and get the guys that they wanted, but still have a good balance of fab dollars to go throw on people. So here's your chance to really take advantage of that and of the low balances of your teammates, and you just kind of being patient. Go and throw a significant sum. He's going to pay off the rest of this year. After Kenneth Walker, we got Eno Benjamin. We just kind of threw him out here because James Conner has a rib injury he sustained last week. Doesn't appear to be serious, but it might. Just kind of keep an eye on it, and because it might linger week to week. And Eno Benjamin did see 11 touches on 8 carries and 3 receptions in replacement of him. Darrell Williams also got injured in I believe the same game. But Eno Benjamin was seeing significantly more touches. I think behind James Conner, is going to be the running back to roster. You might stash him if you do have James Conner or are needy at the position and can afford that roster spot. Might be worth a stash if James Conner doesn't go this week. He's going to be a shoe-in, and he's going to get you plenty of opportunities.
Yep. And I think we talked about before about we like chasing those Seattle matchups. And Cliff did say that James Conner is okay. He's just being very cautious with him. It's something in the rib area. Quote, I would still pick up Eno Benjamin because I don't trust a word that Cliff Kingsbury says, and I don't trust James Conner's body. So just in case, I think we have a very clear handcuff type of situation there. And I very much like I've always had a soft spot for Eno Benjamin. Darrell Williams being out of the picture would also help. Jerick McKinnon is the third name I want to bring up. What world are we living in, Axton, where we have the Chiefs, the highest scoring offense in the NFL perennially, or close to it, and we just can't have the running back? Like, this is how the breakdown went on Monday night. McKinnon had 38 snaps. He outsnapped CEH by 38 to 31. He ran 3 more routes than CEH, but it was a near 50-50 split. Now, if anyone watched the game, Jerick McKinnon, did you catch it last night, Axton, or no?
Yeah, I did. Jerick McKinnon plays well. Yeah.
He was unbelievable.
I love it.
He was so good.
I just love the way Andy Reid runs this offense. It's wild, the crazy kind of plays that they come up with. And as I've mentioned many times before, he's finding that role for every single player. And Jerick McKinnon's really, really owned his role in this offense. And as you alluded to, he's outsnapped CEH and honestly almost every game this year. There might only be like 1, maybe 2 weeks where CEH has actually outsnapped him. The only thing is that CEH gets those
red zone work.
Red zone work. He seems to get those more valuable touches, whereas Jerick McKinnon's just kind of more utilized in the open field and to just kind of switch things up and try to get some momentum going. And he's been doing great as far as an actual real life football standpoint. He's not exactly a sexy pick for fantasy entirely, but his usage is encouraging. That's for sure. Definitely someone you could keep an eye on at stash.
And it's that usage that I don't mind stashing him because I don't think you're picking him up and playing him. I think everything you just said is right because Andy Reid's finding a role for his guys. And it's been a minute since Andy Reid's employed a bell cow. I don't think that randomly changes now. But Jerick McKinnon has really high upside should CH get hurt. And should CH get if CH is as bad as he's been, I have to believe that eventually Jerick McKinnon is going to start eating in a little bit more. And we've seen that. Each week it seems to progress a little bit more. We see more McKinnon. McKinnon does more with his touches. I feel like it's going to come eventually. And in the RB landscape that we find ourselves in, I think you do worse than keeping. I think he's a great back-end bench stash. And maybe even an interesting DFS play this week. Who knows? Tough matchup against the Bills, but I think McKinnon is someone I really like stashing. Now, I know we have a question in here from Marco, and we have a few questions in here from Marco. We're going to get to those at the end of offense. But on the topic of Tevin Coleman, which is the subject of one of them, what do you think about Tevin Coleman? Because I know we don't really have him on the dock, but he had a surprising amount of usage this week. And he grabbed himself a touchdown, made an incredible catch as well. The revival of Tevin Coleman in Kyle Shanahan's offense, go figure. He only took 8 carries for 23 yards, but he got a decent amount of receiving work with 3 catches. I'm not chasing it personally because this is just Shanahan doing Shanahan things. And Elijah Mitchell's not dead. Like eventually the man will come back as well. But for me, it's still the Jeff Wilson show until I see otherwise. And I don't mind picking up Tevin Coleman. In the same situation, I would pick up Jerick McKinnon. Who would you rather pick up right there? Let's just settle it with that. Would you rather
McKinnon or Tevin Coleman? Honestly, I like Jerick McKinnon more as a player, but I think just with offensive schemes and the way that the 49ers lean a lot more heavily on the run game, I think I'm probably going to lean a little bit more towards Tevin Coleman, just in hopes for some red zone looks. I think that he's just got more opportunity to take advantage of valuable plays that he's involved in. And they rely heavily on the run. Yes, it's Jeff Wilson's show, but it's not out of the norm for them to run more than one running back. And if he's getting good looks, he's got good opportunities to make something happen. Now, I'm not going to pick him up hoping that he's just going to take over the backfield in Mitchell's absence, but definitely lends to a kind of a boomer bust candidate. He might be somebody that could come in and punch in a touchdown if you need to absolutely play him in a pinch or something on a bye week.
Let's go on to wide receivers. Last week we talked about Jamel Agnew. If Zay Jones was out, Zay Jones plays, so it didn't matter. We talked about not buying Josh Reynolds, which is another name we're going to be talking about today because he got the job done. We were looking at Nico Collins, who continues to flash, but not really putting it all together. He's right there. It feels like he's right there with the plays that he's making. All he seems to be doing is ruining Brandon Cooks' amazing floor, which is a real shame. But we also have Isaiah McKenzie, who did get hurt, but I would still pick him up if he is out there because I would plug and play Isaiah McKenzie still this week against the Chiefs, which Bills Chiefs this week. Aren't we lucky? Can't wait. So what names this week are we looking at? Because I think there's a few. I think our first name we can honestly leave towards the last because it's the least exciting of the bunch.
Absolutely. We'll go ahead and start off with Jacoby Myers. You put on here, which is it's ridiculous that he's available in 52% of Yahoo leagues. Pretty sure he's flirting right around a double-digit target share every single week. If he's out there, go ahead and pick him up. Definitely somebody that, as even right now, you could probably plug him into a flex spot and be okay, especially in PPR formats where that volume is really going to pay off even more so. Even Bailey Zappi in his debut start this last week actually allowed him to catch 7 of 8 targets for 111 yards and a touchdown. I think this is something that we're going to see a lot of this year out of Jacoby Myers. So if he's still if he's out there on your waiver wire, go snatch him up. Yeah, I would even snatch him up over over an Elijah Moore. If you got Elijah Moore sitting down there waiting on your bench and you're waiting for him to pop off, I think this is going to be a safe replacement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And on the topic of I completely agree with everything you just said. He should definitely be rostered. He's a great PPR player. On the topic of a deep tournament league, I'll just on topic of Patriots, I'll throw it out for 20 seconds. Tyquan Thornton, first game back, logged 40% snaps, immediately dropped Devontae Parker to the bench pretty much. I'm not interested yet, but if you are, this is a deep format. I'm not talking your normal redraft thing. Tyquan Thornton is a name to keep in mind. Their second-round rookie, flashed in the preseason, definitely more of a track star than a football player, but maybe it comes all together. But another name, another rookie, on the topic of Tyquan Thornton, Alec Pierce. Oh my goodness. I am such a fan of Alec Pierce's game. I thought he was so good at Cincinnati. I thought he made Desmond Ridder. He's such a good blend of route running, size, hands, high pointing. He's a big target. If anybody doesn't know, he's now the second-round receiver of the Indianapolis Colts. The breakout is fully underway. Snaps have been increasing every single week. They jumped last week. They have jumped again. They were alluding to jumping last week, and now they have jumped, and he delivered in a big way. 6 catches, I believe it was 83 yards on Thursday night in a putrid offense. I think everything I've read about the beat is that this is something that's here to stay. And it's something that I would expect to be here to stay based on the prospect I thought he was. The catch percentage is increasing. The target share is increasing. The Colts are still losing games, which outside of Thursday, which shapes up for good things for Alec Pierce. I think he's sticking around. I think there's going to be weeks where you're going to be disappointed because some days it's just going to be purely the Pittman show and purely the Jonathan Taylor show. But there's going to be a lot. The Colts are not a good football team. They're not what we want them to be. And that shapes up well for Alec Pierce. And I think he's going to have a pretty strong season, and you could play him in. It's going to be a predictable type of thing. In matchups where it shapes up well, you can play him.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Jonathan Taylor overall, I think has been a pretty underwhelming this year. And then on top of that, the Colts backfield is just all banged up with Nyheim Hines going out last week after Jonathan Taylor was already ruled out for the week, and they had to throw Phillip Lindsay in there. I think it's just going to lend well to more passing opportunities. And yes, you mentioned this Colts offense is just, it's really not great. So I don't foresee Pittman and Alec Pierce both having great weeks many times. So that's kind of the only kicker in your redraft leagues is just kind of guessing who's going to get the torch this week and making that right pick. But definitely happy to see this production if you snatched him in your dynasty leagues.
I was such a fan, and I was so glad to see him get day 2 value. But the last thing we'll bring up, or I'll throw out a few names at the end, but Josh Reynolds, just because we alluded to him before, he's put up double-digit points in more weeks than not. I believe every single real week. Amon-Ra was definitely on a snap count this past week, which would have been nice if we knew that before the game. I thought if they were playing him before the bye week, he would be good to go. But Dan Campbell said, no, I'm going to go out there and put up 0 points. But Josh Reynolds, what are you doing with him? Because I imagine this is going to be a healthy Detroit offense again after the break. DJ Chark will probably be back. Amon-Ra should be full strength. DeAndre Swift is expected to return. Are you chasing Josh Reynolds?
I think I don't mind stashing him. If I've got him or he's out there, throw him on the bottom of your bench. He's even before Amon-Ra was hurt back in week 3. That's when Josh Reynolds really started picking it up. When Amon-Ra was even in there playing all the snaps, and he's had an average of 9 targets ever since. So volume is definitely has been there thus far. Yes, I know they've had injuries and Amon-Ra's been out, Chark's been out, but Chark had one great week, but I don't think he's going to be able to produce 3 consistent weeks with the same kind of production that Reynolds has been doing. Yes, he might be higher on the depth chart, but I mean, the production's kind of talking right now. I think he's pretty well earned himself at least consideration, to just kind of stash him and wait and see just kind of what he does with everybody back. Because I think he might end up surprising some people, but I wouldn't go all in on him just quite yet.
It's tough to hold him through the bye for me, where I have to wait 2 weeks to now see I'm not going to play him in that first week back. I'm just not. I'm not going to do it when I see it. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to hold him now for 3 weeks to see if I'm going to play him. So I'm probably not going to go out and pick him up because I just don't want to do that. Like odds are I'll pick him up and probably cut him next week and want to do that. So I'm probably not going to chase it for better or worse. He's played very well. And if an injury pops up, maybe I will. But other news I want to throw out there, Rondale Moore. I'm not personally chasing it, but I saw a lot of people are because the snaps went up. He got good usage, and Rondale Moore does well with his touches normally. Jumped to like 70% of snaps. He fully AJ Green sat down. Greg Dortch is now out of the picture. I'm not personally chasing it. Give me like a 15-second. What do you think on Rondale Moore?
I'm not really chasing it just yet. He's definitely gonna have to prove it to me at least a couple 3 weeks. You know, I want more production out of him, especially with D-Hop coming back. Didn't he come back in week 7 next week? So I'm probably just gonna leave Rondale Moore where he's at, honestly.
Yep. We'll throw out George Pickens. We talked about him last week, I'm sure, and everyone's been talking about him. He's most likely owned in your league at this point, but he is Kenny Pickett's favorite target, and he has that dog in him. So if he is on your wire somehow, we're throwing it out as a very common name to pick up, but just go out and scoop him if you just check your wire. And Van Jefferson is an interesting stash deeper leagues. I think the Rams' biggest issue right now outside their offensive line is that they don't have a deep threat, and Van Jefferson is so important to doing that, and he's not far from his return. I think he can have very quietly in very important production for this team that helps everyone. So I'm very intrigued by Van Jeff when he comes back. I'll probably line him up in a few DFS lineups when he does. But that is our wide receiver roundup. We'll get to the tight ends right now. A final reminder, we do have a few questions in the chat we're going to get to. If you have any questions, offense or defense even, throw them in the chat. We'll be sure to grab them after this tight end segment, go through everything. We just want to help your lineups. And as well, remember, subscribe to the IDP Guys where you're watching right now. Subscribe, follow on Twitter, follow our Twitters, even if you like us that much. But let's get into the tight ends. Last week, we talked about Will Dissly and Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas did not play, but I would still, I'll line them up this week, Thursday night. I think that's a good matchup for him, especially Jahan Dotson sidelined. Will Dissly, underwhelming day, as any tight end would. Just didn't catch his touchdown. Some weeks he will, some weeks he won't. I think he can easily bounce back and do that against the Falcons this week, so I would give him another chance as well as far as tight ends go. But the names this week, interesting bunch of names, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'm kind of all over here. To start, I'll let you get to the exciting one up next. But let's just talk about Cade Otton just a little bit. If Cameron Brate misses for the Tampa Bay Bucks, if he misses another week this year, or not this year, if he misses week 6, definitely give Cade Otton a look. He had 6 catches for 43 yards, and I was on 7 targets last week. Tom Brady just loves his tight ends, and although he may not ever see another Gronk, as far as the rest of his time being his last year in the NFL, he's still going to use him. And whether he might just throw him a few short passes here and there, he's going to get some volume, especially in maybe even tight end premium leagues. He might have a nice week with Cameron Brate out. But he's just kind of somebody to with the tight end position is so shallow now. If you have any injuries, especially with a team that has a quarterback that is notably loves his tight ends, definitely worth a stream this week if Brate's not gonna play.
Yep. I think he's a quality player. I like Cade Otton. He was my tight end 3 in this group, and I really only liked 4 tight ends in this class. And one of them went undrafted. So it's wasn't a great group of tight ends this year, but Cade Otton was among the better ones, and he performed last week. And I'm not sure how long Cam Brate will be out with the concussion, but as long as he is, I do think you can line up Cade Otton. I will throw out the name of the week, the man, the myth, the legend, quarterback / tight end, Taysom Hill. It bothers me so much, Axton, as you could probably tell. It bothers me beyond everything. The man put up over 30 fantasy points in almost all formats. Threw a touchdown, ran for 3, 112 rushing yards on the ground on just 9 carries. Had return yards, if your league counts that. In one of my leagues, but you count return yards, he had 44 fantasy points this week. So he played 30% of offensive snaps. He's a blocker for a decent chunk of those. What are we doing with that? Because listen, I'll be the one that says you can probably still do worse at tight end than Taysom Hill, especially while Jameis Winston is hurt. I think that matters as well because I think we've seen more Taysom Hill usage while Jameis has been out. Like we saw 5 carries last week. We've seen 9 this week. He only had he had 7 combined in the 2 weeks prior when Jameis actually played. So I think they're trying to find other options. While how is it still happening with Sean Payton gone? How is this happening? I don't get it. But I don't know.
You would think that by now I was going to say, yeah, you would think that by now defenses would think, oh, if Taysom Hill's lined up at quarterback, probably going to run it. How many times he runs a lot more than he ever even passes, and when he passes, he's not a great passing quarterback.
It is the biggest point of emphasis when I watch football with my friends is when he's beyond shotgun, we're like, okay, well, we know what he's going to do. And then he runs for a touchdown. He runs for
he runs like 50 yards. You're like, what is the defense doing?
Like, listen, maybe he'll throw it 10% of the time, which is literally what he did he ran it 9 times. He threw it once. Like, maybe he'll do that. So give some half-assed, whatever. It's fine. The point is, you could probably do worse than other people. Taysom Hill has as much volatility as almost any tight end that you got right now. I would still play Will Dissly over him because I still think Will Dissly is more likely to get a touchdown. But while Jameis Winston is out, I am willing to play Taysom Hill unless I have the top-level starters. Because why not? That is tight end at this point. He's getting goal line carries. It's essentially playing CH in your tight end spot. Right? I mean, and
yeah. Pretty much.
I think if we just changed the name, we would all be like, yeah, you're going to play CH at your tight end spot. So I think Taysom Hill can be treated like that. You're not going to get 44 every week, but you could get 2 carries for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. And that would be the top 3 tight end for the week probably. So why not? Why not? While Jameis is out, why not? I'll play Taysom Hill. When Jameis returns, I'm probably going to give it a week and see because – listen, we've had this for Taysom Hill before. We've seen Taysom Hill do this before, and then he follows up with a season of 2 carries for 10 yards, pass for 5, incompletion, interception. So it's volatile, but oh god, he gets my blood boiling.
I think he's an enticing pick, especially for maybe like Dalton Schultz drafters who maybe don't have like a good replacement or something like that.
Darren Waller drafters, Cole Kmet guys that were banking on Cole Kmet. Yeah,
I'd be comfortable rolling Taysom Hill out even if I thought he might get a 0 this week because technically none of those guys are going to do any better, and the upside is just tremendous with Taysom Hill if you hit. So yeah, definitely. I think by now he's got to be rostered. I'm admittedly going to say that I've already picked him up and dropped him at the absolute worst times already this season. I picked him up after his first big game, and then he laid a dud on me the next week, and then I dropped him. And then, of course, this week happens, and I'm banging my head against the wall.
Yeah, okay. Well, we got one more name we'll throw out there. That's Hayden Hurst, who's still available in 70% of Yahoo leagues. 5 catches or a touchdown all but 1 game. I'm not in love with the matchup. The New Orleans Saints have been pretty clamps against the tight end for 2 years now, and they're continuing to this year. I believe they're 31st in points allowed to that position. But I think you do worse in the same concept of what we talked about. Maybe do this. Play Taysom Hill against Atlanta. Play Hayden Hurst. Wait, hold on. Sorry. Play Taysom Hill against the Bengals this week. And then play Hayden Hurst against Atlanta the week after. Just why not? Stream the matchups. I think Hayden Hurst could be an okay start this week, and he has a great matchup the week after. So if you can hold them a week, great. You know your league better than we would. But I like Hayden Hurst as a player who's done very well this year. And T. Higgins could miss. If T. Higgins misses, that also opens up a lot of opportunity for Hayden Hurst.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the Bengals wide receivers just in general are pretty just hit or miss as far as fantasy goes. But the one thing that's remained fairly consistent is Hayden Hurst. He hasn't really put up stellar numbers, but something that's worth a look, and something he's put up numbers that would be start worthy. Not every week, but definitely enticing, especially with such a shallow position.
Yep. All right, let's get to our questions. We have a lot of them in here. Starting off from Marco, we have our Tevin Coleman, Benjamin, Joshua Kelly worth picking up in a half PPR league. So we obviously talked about Tevin Coleman and Benjamin. Josh Kelly, who seems to have fully won the backup job in Los Angeles, despite the team. I guess Isaiah Spiller is just really not panning out. To have Joshua Kelly beat him out. But Joshua Kelly looks good. He's played well in his bits. 10 carries, which is a pretty solid number for a backup running back. But we've seen the Chargers run 2 running back systems for years, honestly. And last year was somewhat an anomaly about that because they tried to get Joshua Kelly involved, and Joshua Kelly was just terrible with it. So this makes sense to me, but I'm not going to chase it, and I think it's just going to be touchdown or bust. Because honestly, if he takes 10 carries for I treat him like Alexander Madison, except lower end, where he might have 1 week where he suddenly has more touches like Alexander Madison had this week. But if Madison didn't score, if Joshua Kelly didn't score, you're not all that happy. He's definitely got that high upside though because of the handcuff roll. So I would order these trio as I'd probably go Tevin, Kelly still.
Yeah, I think
Kelly, Coleman. Yeah.
Oh, are you going Kelly before Coleman?
Because the handcuff upside. I think there's higher upside with should Josh Kelly or should Austin Eckler go down than if Jeff Wilson went down.
Yeah, I think so too. But with as it sits right now with their spot in the depth chart, barring any injuries, I think on just your general week-to-week basic, I think Coleman's probably going to provide a little bit more upside week to week with James Conner healthy and then Austin Eckler healthy.
Yes.
Now that said, with any injuries coming in, I'm like you. I think I'm going Benjamin, Kelly, Coleman. But I think you pretty well ordered it. Ordered it kind of perfect. We like I said, week to week, in their backup roles, Coleman could punch it in for a touchdown. I think he's going to be most likely. But as far as replacement goes, you definitely want Benjamin or Joshua Kelly over Tevin Coleman. He's already had a starting role throughout the last few seasons, and he's really just hasn't jumped onto anything spectacular.
And that was a good point. Of if I need to play one of these guys this week, I'd play Tevin Coleman, assuming James Conner is active. But I would pick up Coleman and Benjamin just in case. I'd pick up Benjamin just in case Conner's not.
James Conner.
Yeah. So Marco also asked, we got a string of them from him. Should I pick up Justin Fields, Daniel Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo, or Matt Stafford, or should he hold Andy Dalton? I would play Jimmy G against Atlanta.
Yeah, right? I'd go Jimmy G. Stafford would be even worth a stash, but I think Dalton's time is pretty limited as of right now. So, Jimmy G.
Right. Darius Slayton, who popped off with a nice day. I'm happy. I stashed him in one league like 5 minutes before kickoff. I was happy about that. Khalil Shakir, and it actually continues into this one, or De'Ami Brown, a half PPR league. And then he has one other question after that. Darius Slayton. As much as I've always liked Darius Slayton, I'm glad he finally got minutes. I'm not really sure why he didn't before. Khalil Shakir is a plug and play if Isaiah McKenzie misses. I'm still expecting McKenzie to get out of protocol, though he still is in it as of now. So I'd pick up, if I had to pick up any of those names, I'd probably pick up Slayton. I don't think I have the courage to play De'Ami Brown on Thursday night, even with Jahan Dawson expected to miss. Because Logan Thomas will also be back, and he made his entire day on 2 games. And I think McKenzie will clear protocol, and if not, you could probably still pick up Shakir later in the week. So I would go Slayton because I think he just has a higher upside.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement, especially with the injuries to the Giants wide receiver core. I think Slayton's going to have a lot more opportunity for week-to-week production versus De'Ami Brown's just really going to be – he's going to be someone you're never going to predict when he's going to have a game, if he even has another one the rest of this season. And Khalil Shakir is on it. Is it just he's kind of on a timeline until McKenzie comes back. If he comes back this week, it just kind of hands down Slayton for me.
Yep. And in the same league, would you pick up Cade Auden, Fant, or Mo Alley Cox? I think the correct answer is none of them. But I'd pick up Cade Auden just in case Brate misses. And if not, then you can get either of those two names probably later in the week anyway. Mm-hmm. And if I had to pick between them, I guess Mo Alley. Maybe Mo Alley has better touchdown upside to me because it seems like they use Will Dissly in the red zone more than they use Noah Fant.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Last one in from Marco. Entire roster on Sicoli. Oh, it's just a good comment. Yeah. Listen, man, we've been through it. Listen, I have a single league where I lost my week by 1.1, as I've talked on the show. I had Nick Bosa. I had Michael Walker. I had Keenan Allen. I have Nyheim Hines. I have Damian Harris, and Chris Olave. The only one of those players that wasn't in the starting lineup was Damian Harris. All those other guys, if they just play another snap, maybe I win. So it's how the game goes, my friend. We got a question from Infinite Possibilities. He has, I assume this is Devontae Adams in his 16-team, 53-man roster. I've always dreamed about doing one of those in Dynasty. What do you think will happen with Devontae Adams after he pushed that cameraman last night? Scumbag move by Devontae, but he apologized immediately. If he gets suspended, it'll be one game. I think he just gets levied with a heavy fine. Maybe he donates something. I don't think he gets a suspension for it. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think he will.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I wouldn't be surprised if he does end up getting a suspension, but I think it's just going to end up being a fine. He's pretty high in a really close game, and I think his actions, yes, were not very thought out, but I think he quickly realized afterwards that he kind of let his emotions kind of get the best of him in the moment. And it was just kind of one of those things that in the moment you're feeling all this, you're feeling all this emotion at once. And he kind of had a big play actually called back where
he didn't catch it.
Like 45 seconds. Yeah. Well, yeah, the original call was the catch. So that's just stems his frustration, just he thought he was in it. He thought that they had a chance to really go down and score, and it ended up in his eyes costing him the game. So I think that a suspension could be possible, but I think, like you said, a fine's probably most likely.
Start 2 tight end league. I'm sorry you're doing that to you, but maybe it's the 53-man roster. Starting Evan Ingram, he's played Juwan Johnson 2 weeks in a row as tight end 2. Obviously, he has just not scored. He keeps running those routes, but not really getting them. Should he play Noah Fant over Juwan Johnson? The Seattle, we've talked about extensively. Seattle's playing Atlanta. No. San Fran's playing Atlanta. Seattle's playing. Who did we just talk about with Gino? But Seattle's playing the Cards, who are very susceptible to the tight end, and Juwan Johnson and the Saints are playing. Good God, help me. The Saints are playing Cincinnati. We've talked about it so much on this show. So would you play Noah Fant against I forgot it, but I'd probably play I keep on writing out Juwan Johnson, but I might have to I'm gonna pause the Juwan Johnson hype train until James gets back. For the same reason that we see with Taysom Hill, because they are recommitting to the run game. Kamara's back on the field. They're really not trying to pass it. Juwan Johnson could catch one. He could easily catch one ball for a touchdown. I would not be surprised, and you want to play him. But I think I would play Noah Fant. You're flipping a coin with either of these guys. Neither of them are expected to do much, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of going the same way. At least till James gets back, I think I'm going to roll out Noah Fant. Especially with the Seahawks really kind of surging and Geno Smith kind of coming into his own there. Opportunity. The offense is gonna run well. It's gonna be impossible to tell when Noah Fant's gonna have a great game and when he's not. But it just lends well to better opportunity. Again, at least till Jameis Winston comes back for New Orleans.
Another question from Infinite Possibilities: is Antonio Gibson dust? He is to the eyes of Ron Rivera. And I think Brian Robinson's going to take that job pretty firmly on Thursday night. Any disagreement there?
I just don't think. I have a hard time believing that Antonio Gibson's just going to be forgotten. I don't know that he's going to that Brian Robinson arguably probably going to take over most of the rushing duties, but I think that Gibson's role is just going to shift. I'm not entirely sure what it's going to look like. I don't think really anybody could exactly pinpoint, but I think that I just think that his role is going to shift. I think he's still going to be involved. I don't think this week was a great indication of kind of what's to come for that offense. The backfield just kind of they didn't really do a whole lot. They didn't even run, neither one of them really ran a whole lot this last week. But it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be out on Gibson just yet. I'd kind of want to see a full game of both of them in there and an ideal situation where they're not entirely playing from behind and having to pass the entire game anyways.
I get holding him to see what he does this week in redraft. I don't mind buying him in Dynasty because I still believe in the talent. I just think Ron Rivera is out on him. And that's really what matters. So I'm willing to cut bait, but I wouldn't cut bait for a Benjamin yet. Mm-hmm. I'd probably hold him for one more week. I'm not playing him because I do expect Brian Robinson to get this, and I do think that special teams are his future for the time being. Question from Pierre Jimenez. Do I trade Dave Montgomery and Christian Kirk for Lamb and Walker? I do, yes, in a heartbeat, and I kick the person, or I don't kick the person. I shake their hand. Happily say business. I will. Yes. CD Lamb, Kenneth Walker. Yes. CD Lamb.
Don't look back.
CD Lamb, Kenneth Walker side by a good margin for me. Is Chase Young a draft in the second round as a rookie? If this is Dynasty, he is not. You hold until he gets back. Hopefully, you have an IR spot that you've been doing it in. In a redraft, yes. And I was, if you check out the newsletter, that the IDP Guys newsletter in the comment at my Twitter bio, I've been talking with him all offseason of guys that you're going to have to hold for 8 games are very difficult people to do. It's just so hard to, because now we're 5 weeks in the season. We know names that we want to pick up, and we want to pick them up. So I do think he's a fair drop in redraft. I am holding him confidently in Dynasty because I'm hoping that he comes back to the form that he is. Right?
Yeah, you said it perfect. Then my exact thought.
All right. Dynasty question. Dynasty League PPR. Mike Williams for Mariota and Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs looked unbelievable Monday night, by the way. He's looked great the last 2 weeks. The Raiders have been in games now that they are giving Josh Jacobs the ball. He does note that he will be fine with his core or his wide receiver core. He's got AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, Hollywood, Alec Pierce, DK. That is lovely. If I need a running back, wow. That is
honestly,
one.
I don't think I mind it. I'm really just not big on Mike Williams. I think his value is just at its highest right now with Keenan Allen out. But that said, how much long? Well, Dynasty League PPR, so I guess just kind of a question of how long Keenan Allen is going to be there for me. But as long as Keenan Allen's playing all the snaps and he's healthy, Mike Williams is in the shadows, in my opinion. And I think that Mike Williams and Josh Jacobs at this point in time, especially considering their play, I think that's pretty close to an even trade by itself.
Yeah, I would do it. I would do it. And I am the biggest Mike Williams fan I know. And I doubted Josh Jacobs entering this year. But they've recommitted to the run. He looks unbelievably good. And he is running. The truth is that he's a 3-down back right now. They're going to work Brandon Bolden occasionally, but he is going to get the work. I'm fine with this. And especially it helps that you have the wide receiver core that you do. And I might try to get a pick instead of if you can get a pick on top of it, good for you. If not, then I'd be content with this. Especially this is a contender only type of situation. I'm not buying Josh Jacobs still if I am I would hold Mike Williams if I am not contending right now. Next question from Infinite Possibilities. Should I drop Bailey Zappi for PJ Walker if you need a starter? I imagine Mac Jones will be back within 2 weeks. PJ Walker is going to be starting for the next 3 weeks. So they're probably PJ Walker's not going to be good, but Bailey Zappi is probably not going to be starting. So tit for tat type of thing. You know what I mean? Like if you need a 1 week
Yeah.
stat, I might hold Bailey Zappi. If I need to start someone this week, I'll probably hold Zappi to see what I can. Hopefully he plays again, and I'd rather play Zappi than PJ Walker. And if PJ Walker, if you know what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keep an eye on the injuries. If Bailey Zappi's going to play, I think we both kind of agree that we'd rather start Zappi over PJ Walker. But that said, if Mac Jones is going for this week, you kind of don't really have much of a choice. Zappi ain't going to play.
Yeah. Tony Jones worth picking up a penny out. No. No, Tony Jones can't get on the field even if he could dream of it. Wasn't active this past week in London, and I don't think it's going to change. Question, have I ever made a trade and then your player got knocked out for the season soon after? Who do you trade for or lose? This trade away. I traded the 110 of the 2021 draft for Cam Akers, and 3 weeks later he tore his Achilles. So yeah, I've been there, and it hurts, and it still hurts now. But that's the first thing that came to mind. Anything for you?
As far as trades, I've only recently dabbled into the dynasty aspect of it. So beforehand, I was more redraft centered, and the leagues that I was in didn't do a whole lot of trading. I did get hit by a Christian McCaffrey wave last year when I drafted him in the first round and had to deal with that the rest of the season. I was scrambling all year long. But as far as trades yet in dynasty, I haven't really had I've only kind of in my second dynasty season, so I haven't made a trade yet that has been detrimental to me, but I'm sure it will come.
Yeah. And I was also in that Christian McCaffrey boat, but I got Rashad Penny as well in that deal.
Ooh.
And Rashad Penny's playoff run last year carried me instead of Christian McCaffrey, so it all worked out.
Nice.
And on the topic of Rashad Penny, final question in from Marco are we holding out to Rashad Penny in Dynasty with only one IR spot? Yeah. I mean, I'm probably trying to. He was still a good player, and I could still see Pete Carroll bringing him back because Pete Carroll just loves him. And even if he comes back as a RB2, I think that's still something that tends to get rostered in Dynasty. It all depends on how deep your league is. And I imagine there aren't many names on your wire that you're rushing to pick up over Penny anyway, right? So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with Rashad Penny.
Yep, definitely worth an IR spot. He's gonna come back eventually, and when he does, is this his last year on his contract?
He got a 1 year he was free agent this past offseason, then he got 1 more year.
Right. Okay.
So,
and I think I don't know. The Seattle offense likes to have plenty of running backs on hand, so I'd imagine he's probably going to come right back.
Thank you, Marco, for all your questions. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions, because that is our waiver wire show. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. This was a super fun week.
Oh yeah,
and hopefully it all helps out. So from me, Michael Sicoli, you can follow me at Michael__Sicoli, and you follow Axton here at Harding_3. Of course, IDP Guys on Twitter is also subscribing on YouTube because we always have amazing content coming out week in, week out, helping you win your fantasy weeks to get you that fantasy championship. So from myself, from Axton, from IDP Guys, we're going to move on. We're going to see you guys next week, 12 p.m. Eastern, every single Tuesday, helping with waiver wire shows. As always, you can submit the questions to either of us, and we will be getting to. We'll see you guys next week. I'm still struggling with these closings. You guys are also cool, infinite possibilities. All right, so have a good week. Have a good weekend. Good luck with your matchups. Hope everyone stays healthy and safe.
Best of luck, everyone.